So participatory media, and what we call participatory media such as community radio that are produced and managed by local communities are proving to be a vital tool in terms of disasters and crises. With their underlying philosophy of empowerment of marginalized people, community radios are attuned to disaster management approaches that are centered on vulnerable sections of society. I mean, there is quite a bit of documented evidence now about the significance of community radio in dealing with disaster risk reduction and disaster management from Asia, in South and Southeast Asia, but also lots of interesting stories from Africa, Australia, the Caribbean, of how local communities have used their communication competencies to share information about impending natural disasters, rehabilitation efforts, and to build resilient communities that adopt practices of sustainable development so that they become less vulnerable to future disasters. Now, community radios are able to deliver during natural disasters or public health crises such as the coronavirus pandemic is because of certain key characteristics that define them. So I'll quickly run through them. One is, of course, their proximity to the community, often supported by decades of grassroots mobilization work in which the parent organization has been engaged. So that's a primary advantage. Secondly, moving away from inputs from only professionally trained broadcasters, community radio programs are mostly produced in partnership with and by the participation of community members. Thirdly, unlike the one-size-fits-all models of dissemination of information and knowledge, the content of community radios is contextualized locally, sharing relevant experiences and information that large-scale centralized media cannot. The programming in community radios is mostly done in local languages and dialects, with community radios in India today echoing the sounds of Marwari, Kutchi, Bundi, Bhojpuri, Haryanvi, Desia, languages rarely heard over the airwaves, let alone being recognized by the Constitution. And the participatory ethos in the local context of community radios also end up challenging dominant knowledge hierarchies by recognizing local communities as bearers of valuable local knowledge, who can then become active producers of media content rather than remain passive receivers or consumers of information. I often say that communities engaged in community radio work learn to use the media rather than be used by the media, which is what the dominant media does. Community radio stations in India, Nepal, Bangladesh, just take South Asia, came up with an array of contributions during the pandemic times that proved without any qualms for us that community radio is not just about making radio, it is about serving communities and reaching the unreached. Through a combination of terrestrial broadcasting, and I'm saying terrestrial broadcasting specifically, to differentiate it from digital, online, and so on, because most communities don't have access to those tools. To some extent, social media and personal engagement, the community radio stations contributed to community awareness, preparedness, and participation, and served in meaningful ways as catalysts to combat the coronavirus pandemic in their respective countries. And community radio stations introduced a lot of creativity and variety to that content, whether it was airing folk songs about the theme of social distancing and isolation, or making the COVID-19 vocabulary, with which many of us were having problems, when the pandemic first started. Quarantine, lockdown, pandemic, physical distancing, hand hygiene, asymptomatic, PPE, vaccine, N95. So there are lots of stations that were unpacking, deconstructing this in local languages and making it comprehensible for the listeners. So as nations went under lockdowns, compelled to close their borders and impose restrictions. Community radio stations were on air, supporting their listeners in the most ingenious ways, broadcasting vital, verified, and village-level information in local languages through skits, songs, folk tales, and even through live phone-in programs, while making the communities participate. From furnishing judicious and timely information about COVID-19 to handling a variety of anxieties, from busting rumors and debunking misinformation and disinformation to presenting quiz shows on the coronavirus, playing favorite song lists, running schooling programs, to establishing helplines for counseling because most children in rural areas did not have access to online education. Many community radio stations ran actually curriculum-based schooling programs. So the community radio stations remained tied to their communities in very interesting ways. Just to give you a couple of quick examples, some of them not too far from here in Delhi. In its response to COVID-19, community radio station Alfaze Mewat, which is located in rural Mewat, has been broadcasted factual information across 225 villages in no district of Haryana about the spread of the pandemic. During the first phase of the nationwide lockdown, Alfaze Mewat aired a series called 21 Baatein 21 Din, 21 dialogues, 21 days. So that was the lockdown period. And so each day, when the restrictions were extended, the station followed up with another series called 19 Din Aur Sambhal Ke, and tried to educate. The idea was to sensitize and inform people about various aspects of the pandemic so that people can be fully aware of the essential things that might help them avoid getting infected or spreading to others. The station also broadcast a show called Savdhan Alert that attempted to take on and debunk disinformation and fake news in circulation on social media platforms. Another station in the same region, Radio Mewat, aired a show called Corona Se Jang Radio Mewat Ke Sang. Fight the battle against the virus with Radio Mewat, through which it not only provided critical information for the well-being of their listeners, but also became a key link between district and local administration, and mostly non-literate communities of the area. In the remotest parts of Koraput district of Odisha, a station called Radio Dimsa, a tribal community radio station catering to the Desiya indigenous community, carried out wide-ranging activities both on-air and off-air to empower the community to deal with the pandemic. So when people were holed up in their homes, the station representatives actually went into the to demonstrate how social distancing works, the right way to wear a mask and so on, apart from doing on-air work. So the community radio broadcasters, unlike mainstream broadcasters, don't do just broadcasting. Their primary work is community engagement and working. So social distancing was really, the exact opposite of what community development work ought to be. It's being in close proximity to people rather than distant. Another station called Gurgaon Ki Awaaz, just specifically chose stations around here. In Gurugram, Haryana, has been informing its listeners, mostly migrant workers who fuel Gurugram's Millennium City, about the availability of rations in the neighborhood, fair price shops, medicines, providing counseling on psychological anxieties, job losses in Haryanvi and a lot of the other dialects that are in use among the migrant workers. One last example I'll give is from Mysore. One radio station called Janadhvani in Mysore brought doctors and health officials to share messages in Kannada and in local dialects. And another Karnataka station, this is amazing, Saradi Jalek in the Hoskote Taluk of Bangalore rural district did some out-of-the-box thinking with its programming. In one panel discussion that I followed, they brought together a health expert, a police officer, an NGO organization representative, an NGO representative, a historian, and a philosopher to discuss past epidemics that had drastically affected the region and the lessons one could learn from those experiences, and also sought to address the spiritual well-being of the community. I mean, there was one amazing show that I've not seen any mainstream media. So the point I'm trying to make is the local context and the idea of reaching out to people and spreading of knowledge and information with the communities rather than to them is the hallmark of community radios. And the pandemic, more than any other time before, has really exemplified the relevance and importance of community radios in India. Those of you who don't follow what happens in that domain, there are something like 350 community radio stations now in India. Interestingly, an equal number of stations are on air in Nepal, a small size of that country. And since I got the microphone, let me do a bit of advocacy that we need something like 3,000 to 4,000 community radio stations in this country. We have 350. We are nowhere near where we should be. Such a large country. And my dream is really to be able to drive from north to south or east to west in my car, to be able to tune into a new community radio station every few kilometers, speaking in a different language. We need really a cacophony of voices across the country, not one nation, one language. Thank you.